You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Hey, thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is not here today to answer your questions.
Crickets.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm Chris Carter. I am here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. Let's go right to the phones. We had some folks waiting over the break. Let's talk to Scott. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Scott, what can we do for you?
Hi, I've got a 2006 Dodge Magnum with a 3.5 six-cylinder. It has 245,000 miles on it, and it runs great. Getting kind of rusty, though, and it's been diagnosed as needing a head gasket because it's got a leak there, and caused one overheating issue, only one time, but they did the gas check on it in the radiator and found that it has a head gasket leak. So the repair is going to cost more than the car's worth. And I'm just checking to see if you guys have any recommendations for some of the stuff you can put in the radiator to temporarily seal those leaks. I've seen some stuff getting some decent time out of them yet. Just looking to extend the miles in the car a little longer to see how much more use I can get out of it.
Well, don't just seal it, KSeal it. Couldn't resist.
Okay.
Yeah,
KSeal. One of the ones I looked at was KSeal.
I wouldn't look at anything but that. We've tried different ones over the years, and that's the only one I've ever had work. The KSeal is a different type of sealer. It's not going to clog anything up. It's just going to seal the leak, but it's only made to seal a leak so big. No sealer can seal one over a certain size, but if you've got a leak that's small, it's not overheating constantly, it's something that's gradual, usually that takes care of the problem. Plus, it's got a money-back guarantee on it, so that's why we're partners with them. We've had really good luck with it. As far as fixing that engine goes, there's no way I would ever put head gaskets in it, even if I was doing it myself and it was free, because it's just a lot of work, and it's got too many miles on it to take the heads off and put gaskets in it.
Yep.
With that many miles, you're just looking for problems. You know, I might put a whole engine in that car, like a certified used engine or something. You just got to look and see what the car is worth. If you look around and you see if you were to go buy that car, but you've got 246,000 miles. If it had like 110 on it, and you saw that those cars were selling for $5,000 or $6,000 yet, well, it might make sense to put an engine in it. But with 246, that's probably a $3,000 car, you know, right in that range, because you just can't buy a car for less than $3,000 that runs and drives much anymore. So try that KSeal. I mean, we'd definitely try that first.
Yeah, man, I live in the country where there's a lot of dust, so what's happened, like the rear rockers are just rusted, or the rockers and the quarter panels are all totally rusted out, to where, you know, and they mentioned, you know, a replacement engine, about $3,500, and it's like, well, you know, I've got more, the parts in this car that are good are worth more than the whole car as a combined unit, so
sure.
I figured, I'd used KSeal for something else in the past, too, so I knew that whatever it was I used it on, I knew it fixed it, but the mechanic I was talking to said he remembered a two-part process that he had that worked really well, but he couldn't find it again. So I thought, well, I'll check with you guys. And so I knew KSeal was good for something else. So definitely talk to him about using that one then, and we'll throw that in there and see what we can do. And
that's a good
hopefully
idea.
It's such a small leak, just with the one time overheating, I'm hoping that we're catching it soon enough that, hey, I can maybe squeeze a couple, 2-3 more years out of this thing yet.
Yeah, for sure.
Scott, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. It is amazing how much, even though we deal with rust a lot, I mean, there's no way around that, but just compared to not too long ago, when we were growing up, the rust was a way bigger factor than it is now.
For you, not for me. When I was growing up, rust was almost non-existent.
Right. Down in Texas,
I bought one car. I bought a 69 Firebird convertible, and it was super rusty. It had some holes in some areas on it, and I think a lot of that was when I got it, the top was down on it, and I think it'd been that way for 10 years, and that probably was the cause of a lot of the rust, because the certain areas of the car had no rust on it, which I would think would rust if it had come from an area of the country with salt, but other places were just rusted out. And we'd get that too. You know, pine needles would get behind the metal trim. Remember when windows used to have metal trim?
Yeah.
They would get behind there and they would rot out on the bottom, and you'd have to repair those. But the general rust of cars just wasn't a thing, which is great. There's still a lot of those cars hanging out in the trees in those areas that are in still pretty good shape.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Jay. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Jay, what can we do for you?
Yeah, hi. I have a 2015 Dodge Durango with a 5.7 V8 in it. Went to change the oil recently, and I encountered something I've never seen before in 50 years of wrenching cars. It's got a plastic sump. It's got a 13 millimeter head for the drain bolt. Wrench couldn't take it off. Put a breaker bar on it. Couldn't mess with it. Couldn't move it. In fact, I ended up splitting a 6-point Craftsman socket trying to take it out. So then I even tried an impact driver, and that just rounded the whole thing off. And I tried a chisel to drive the flange around, and that didn't work. I've just never seen a bolt like this in a sump in all my experience that I couldn't get out. And then I went online, and I found other people have had the same problem. So I was wondering if you had any experience with that.
Yeah, DormanProducts.com. New oil pan time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, I've had people that have said that. We haven't had it in our shop, but I've had people do that, and they've said they had to get a torch out and try to heat it up and all sorts of things. They just could not get the plug out. And then you got the exact opposite. General Motors and some other companies have gone to plastic oil pans with a plastic drain plug that you can basically twist with your fingers and take out. And they recommend replacing the plug when you're changing it because they could just fall out. You don't want an old one to have it falling out. So I don't know what they were thinking or what would cause that to seize up in there. You wouldn't think it would have corrosion because it's got oil on the threads. But for some reason, they're sticking in there. I think there must be a piece of that pan that's coming off and getting stuck in between the threads. So it's seizing up that threads. It's probably moves either when you're putting it in, it's wedging a piece in there, a piece of metal, or when it's coming out, it moves just like a 1/16 of an inch and then it sticks and it's stuck. I would recommend anybody who has one of those, if they pull the drain plug out and it comes out, get yourself some carburetor cleaner or some brake cleaner and spray it.
Okay.
You know,
get it good and clean.
Spray it good and clean, or even you could use some PB Blaster. Spray the threads because not only will it lubricate it, but it'll wash away any debris. But clean it off, clean out the hole on it, let it drain good, clean it out again, let it drain good. Make sure it's completely clean, because if there's anything in there, a piece of carbon from the engine, whatever, that could be what's wedging those in, and you don't want it to get stuck. And don't forget your mechanic. If you're a person out there that's got a Durango or one of these Chrysler engines, 5.7s, and you've gone into the mechanic and they say, I can't get your drain plug out, it's not their fault.
Okay.
It's your problem that your drain plug won't come out. If they say, hey, this thing's stripped out when I couldn't get it out, it broke my socket, that's not their fault. And that it's going to cost maybe $1,000, whatever it is, to put a pan on it, that's still not their fault. You owe that, because the wrench goes lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. And if you cannot unscrew it, it should come out. But I do occasionally have people come in, let's say, I had it at this shop down the street and they broke this. Did they really break it? Yeah, they stripped off my lug nuts, taking them off. You mean because they were rusted up and swollen up and you should have changed them a long time ago? They do sell, you can buy 20 lug nuts now, Chris, like for a car that has 20
Okay.
in a kit, and they're pretty reasonable because of those type of things. So oil drain plugs. If you're ever changing oil, we change plugs a lot. If they look like they're starting to wear or get stripped, it gets a new one. They get a new gasket every time because we don't want that problem.
You guys ever just try vice grips? That's my solution.
Sometimes you have to. Or on cars like yours where they're, so tight they won't come off, those oil filters that are they're plastic.
Yeah.
They're thinking so.
Or I saw Bob Vila do an infomercial about 30 years ago with a wrench that worked on the flat of it was like a magic. Remember those? You could put it on there and
they
then
still make those things.
Yeah.
Wouldn't work in this case with a
it'll work
Durango.
for everything. I'm sure it will. Jay, go back 20 years and find that on that infomercial. 866-594-4150. Because it doesn't, if the bolt is rounded, it just works on the flat and it fits any size, Russ.
You almost did that commercial perfectly.
Yes. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Larry. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Larry, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
I have a 2006 Ford F-150, and I had it in recently to have the oil changed. I use all synthetic oil, and it has 215,000 miles. And when I drove it home, I don't live in the town where I got the oil changed. I live about 30 miles away. When I got home, pulled off the interstate, and I got a beeping sound, and it came on and said, check gauges. And I looked down and my oil pressure had dropped down to 0. Just boom, the needle just went boom right down. When I touched the gas and revved the engine a little bit, it popped right back up to where it's supposed to be. And then the rest of the way on my way home, every time I stopped at the stop sign, the oil pressure just went boom down to nothing. And then when I started out again, it went right back up to normal. Now, it's been kind of off and on doing that when I drive it, but it seems to be more when I get it really warmed up, like taking a trip. I took a trip recently about 100 miles, and it worked fine on the whole trip until I came to a stop sign getting off the interstate, and boom, the oil pressure went down to nothing.
Well, if you're lucky, it's just the oil pressure sending unit. And as the pressure normally drops down a little bit, it can drop 30 pounds, 40 pounds when you're at idle compared to down the highway. If you're lucky, that sending unit's just bad. And it's dropping down like that, and it's failed, so you're not really losing any pressure. If you're not lucky, then you've got a bigger problem going on in the engine with wear. To test it, you would have to pull the oil pressure sending unit out and put a regular manual screw-in mechanical pressure gauge, mechanical, not manual, I guess, and screw that in there and watch the pressure as you drive it and see. And it's going to require, 12, 13 pounds of pressure to keep that light off usually. I've seen them go as low as 7 before the light comes on, but you're really at idle, in gear, hot. It's probably going to be 10 to 14 pounds, somewhere in there. But you'll want to check that and see what it is. And if the engine's still running in good shape and it's just dropping down that low and there's no noises or anything, no metal in the oil, you may be able to put an oil pump in it if you actually have a low oil pressure problem. But you may not. It may just, hopefully it's a sending unit. We've put a number of those sending units in for that problem.
Okay. Well, good. That helps me out.
That's another one of those where that's the best case right there.
Yeah.
Larry, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Texas and talk to Jerry. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jerry, what can we do for you? Jerry, are you there? All right, we lost Jerry. Jerry,
no.
Call us back. What's caught your attention this week since we last met in the shop? What are you guys working on up there that has stood out?
We are seeing a large number of newer GM trucks with engine failures.
Oh, like newer
15 to 22s.
Okay.
That new design of that engine in there, the 6.2s. We're seeing a lot more of those. We're putting an engine in one right now that had a catastrophic failure inside. The camshafts come apart, and when they do, they leave metal throughout the system, and there's no repair of it. You've got to replace the whole thing. It's a direct injected engine. They've got the variable AFM, active fuel management, in there that shuts the lifters on and off. And it's sad to see such new vehicles failing. A lot of these are less than 80,000 miles on them, but they're out of warranty.
Mm-hmm.
And they just say, well, it's just what we got. The metal was cheap, just didn't hold up. Sorry, you're on your own. But that's with anything. Any product you buy just may not last. You don't know what it's going to do. And what's the difference between a $800 computer you buy at Best Buy or something versus a $120,000 Escalade? Oh, well, it's out of warranty. They still say warranty is warranty. So sometimes they'll help
my
you
Windows 7 machine. What am I going to do now?
Oh, Windows what?
7. It's perfect.
7?
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Texas now and talk to Jerry. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Jerry, what can we do for you?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we have a 2015 Expedition, a lot of miles, in great shape, except that occasionally, like on average of 100 miles or so, it will just shut the engine off while we're driving down the road. And I've had it over to the Ford dealer. They put a monitor on to record the codes, and so far they haven't been able to identify any problem with it.
I have not heard of that. We have not had anyone call the show or email us or post on our YouTube page about that at all. I've never seen one shut down while you were driving. Does it always start right back up?
Yes, it always does. It goes down to be, going up the hill, using power, down the hill, going slow, going fast, hot days, cool mornings, anytime. But then
doesn't matter.
All the lights, every warning light on the panel comes on, and it makes a broadcast noise, and then push the button, the start-stop button, to stop it, and then starts right back up and take off full power.
I'm wondering if it doesn't have something going on in that ignition circuit. If it's got a failure in the start-stop system, in the button, and it's shutting it down, it would not show any codes. It thinks that you push the button to shut it off. But typically,
I've never tried.
Yeah, typically you got to hold that button down for 3 seconds to shut it off. You can't just tap it. There was something the other day I got in and I just hit the button once and it shut right off and it was in gear. But I think when there's road speed present and it's in gear, you've got to hold that button down for 3 seconds, because we've had some people that have talked about their car had accelerated and they couldn't get it to shut down, and they were driving down the freeway going crazy speeds, and they got pulled over, and when they got to court, they claimed that, well, I couldn't turn my car off. It just was run away. And of course, manufacturers and people get involved and say, no, it doesn't show that. It shows their foot was on the throttle, and why didn't you shut it off? And they said, well, I tried. I kept pushing the button and nothing happened. But the owner's manual does say that. It's amazing, because I didn't know how to shut. I didn't have a problem with shutting one down. In the shop, I just hit the button and they always turned off. But I did not know that you had to hold it down to shut it down, like turning a computer off if you were at speed on the highway. Some people do, some people don't. But it's one of those things where you got to read your owner's manual on these new ones because they're crazy. But I think you might have a problem in that system.
Okay. Well, one other thing, it isn't like I would expect. I've not tried it, but any drag on it. I mean, the engine shuts off, but the car coasts.
Oh yeah.
It continues to coast. It isn't like the car is keeping the engine, trying to keep the engine turning. Like there's a load against the engine. It just goes into free coast while it's still in drive, while drive is selected.
Does the tachometer show 0 though? Is the engine off for sure, or is it just went down to idle and stayed there?
Oh, no. Well, part of the message comes up. One of the thing covers up the tachometer with the no key detected sign, and so
there you go. If it says no key detected, then it did glitch power, and it's not seeing it's in that mode where it thinks the key is not there. If you take the key away from the car, it shouldn't shut down until you turn it off. But if it shut off like that, I think you might have a problem in that module that powers that, or it could be in the body control module. They call it a GEM module, but it could be in that as well. That's going to be a difficult one to find. And that's hard when people bring cars in and they say, it's not doing it right now, but I want you to find out what's wrong with my car. And it's like, I tell them, it's probably not going to happen. We'll take a quick look, but just see if there's any history codes in it. But other than that, there's nothing you can do. And where does that leave a person who's driving a car like yours? It's like, I can't trust it. What do I do? And where do I go? Because nobody wants to work on it. The dealer doesn't want to work on it. If they do, bring it on in. Here's a couple $100, $300, and we couldn't find it. That's hard. That's really hard. And as we get with more technology, we kind of suffer through that type of stuff.
But that's not an easy problem to tackle. Jerry, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Although that is a direction you would lead, since he's getting that no key detected obviously shouldn't be there. So that's a good place to start on that. Jerry, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, you can watch the show on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe there and join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Josh Berry, congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, UTI.edu, and Berkeley One Classic, celebrating 50 years of collector car coverage.
Let's go to Colorado now and talk to Bill. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bill, what can we do for you?
Good morning.
Hey, welcome to the show.
I had a question. Thank you very much. I had a question. I had a problem with my 77 Mercury Marquis. It was a warm no start, ended up being the pickup coil on the bottom of the distributor. And my mechanic decided to replace the distributor. Instead of taking off the weights and everything and getting down to that pickup coil and just replacing it. Now, ever since I've had it back, it's been a bit laggy. And before it wasn't. So I'm wondering if he didn't get the timing quite right, or, could be mechanical, could be vacuum, or maybe the base. So I was wondering, could you get off a tooth on that distributor and still get your base somewhat close to timing?
Well, it's got to be, whether it's a tooth off, plus or minus, or not, you still have to time the vehicle or it's not going to run. It could be, the thing is, if he put the distributor and a tooth off and used a timing light and he wasn't able to get it set where it's supposed to be, he'd have to pull it back out and move it and then set it correctly. But you could have it a tooth off of where it normally would be, where it was when you pulled it out, and still set the timing. As long as you've got enough rotation in that base, you can set the timing. You could have it 3 teeth off if you could move the distributor around, because that's just, you still need it on top dead center, both valve closed, to get a 0 timing if you're firing at the number 1 piston there when it's coming around. But you can move that position. So if you're looking at it in a clock and you've got number 1 is at, let's say, 1 o'clock, but you switch all the wires around and you've got number 1 now is, instead of at 1 o'clock, it's at 4 o'clock. Well, you pull the distributor out and you just turn it until it's pointing where number 1's at. It doesn't matter which position on the distributor it's at. It does matter, though, which plug it's firing, and that you've got enough rotation left in the distributor to get the timing right. So I would get a timing light out and find out if you've got the right amount of timing. It might just be low. If you're losing power and it's starting well and running good, it's probably just a little low on timing. It needs to be dialed up, advanced a little more.
Yeah, there is a physical limitation on how much you can turn it, because the
thermostat housing
will hit exactly.
Yeah.
And so since he did the new distributor, he kind of introduced some unknowns, like, are the weights free or the right spring, that vacuum advance working. But I also thought, well, hell, he could have done that base as well. So I just wanted some information so I can
Where is
back
it at?
to the mechanic. And
if you're looking at it right now, is that advance all the way up against the distributor housing?
Yeah.
Okay, if it's all the way up against that and you're low on power, my first thought would be it's off a tooth, because he's got it all the way cranked up against that, meaning he was trying to get all the timing he could out of it and can't go any further. So I would pull it out, move the distributor 1 tooth the other way, put it back in, and then that's going to move your advance almost an inch probably on, so you'll have more room to move it. And it's not that hard to pull the distributor out and move it. I don't know. I've seen people try to get by with that before, and all you got to do, if you pull it out, it won't line back up right away, because you've got the oil pump has to be moved, the drive, and you can either stick a screwdriver down in there or the end of a nut driver that will move it, depending on what type of oil pump you've got in there. The engines all have different type of connection for fastener, but hey, just move it a little bit, and then you can drop the distributor in the other direction. Because you can't just drop a distributor in at any position, because that oil pump is always driven by that, and it's always in a little different position. So we just pull the distributor out, turn it, counterclockwise, whatever, just a little bit, drop it back in. But if it's against the housing, I'm really thinking it's probably low on timing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because before the problem with the pickup coil, that 400 was just singing and having a good time, and didn't have any lag at all. So that was my first inclination, anyway.
There you go. Bill, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Is timing just do we worry about that anymore?
No, it's all electronic.
So it's all
Yeah, so all our cars now, the distributors are gone, but on cars that still have distributors and timing, they want the timing set at 0 so that the computer can control all of it.
okay.
So if we've got like an older Chevy pickup with a throttle body, we drop it in, it says set timing at 0, and then the computer takes over. We've got a little connector that unplugs and drops the timing, the control of the timing away, so we can set it with the timing light to 0. Then we plug the connector back in, and you'll see it pop up 13 degrees, whatever it is. You'll see it move, and then we'll know we've got it on. But yeah, the timing, Chris, is like 100% now control. They've got individual coil packs for each cylinder on most vehicles now, so they can charge quicker. That's why they run separate ones. And then the computer knows what to do. It knows when to apply spark to every one of those coils individually, and it times them. And in fact, some of the engines are getting so technical that they can look at the exhaust pulses based on the one oxygen sensor on one bank. You got one on each side in the front, but it can look at that and determine which cylinder is firing and look at the exhaust gas content delayed from the time it takes to get from the cylinder to that oxygen sensor and make fuel adjustments per cylinder based on one sensor for, let's say, 4 cylinders or 2 or whatever you got. And then it can adjust timing per cylinder as well.
Oh, wow.
To get it fine-tuned. So your fuel and your spark is dead on. And then you've got variable valve timing as well on intake and exhaust cam. So there's a lot of moving parts going on in these engines. And that's how they get these engines, like truck engines, how they get them to get into the high 20s for miles per gallon when that same displacement engine couldn't make 12 or 13 just 10 years ago.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. If you're listening on the radio locally, we've got our local lines are wide open. 866-594-4150. I have a question. Somebody came up to me while we were at Barrett Jackson and said, I got a question for the guys. And I said, they're right there. He goes, no, you can just ask it for me. Okay.
It's funny how many people do that.
Right. Yeah, they want I get that, though.
Can you just call in? No.
When you get a chance. If I'm buying a brand new car, let's say it's an Equinox. I'm trying to go right in the middle of all the vehicles. Is that a pretty good middle vehicle?
Yeah, that's right along that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I just bought a brand new Equinox. And we get calls like this all the time. What oil should I use? What should I be doing if I have this brand new vehicle and I want it to run forever?
Don't buy a car.
I'm going to be, I'm the only one who's had it and is going to make all the decisions on it, which is huge when it comes, because people will call and say, I just bought a 40,000 mile car. How do I keep it running forever? Well, you might not be able to. Somebody might have already wrecked it, which is just how it goes.
Yeah. So if you buy a brand new one, your chances are better if you maintain it. You flush the transmission when it's due. And when I say due, don't follow the manufacturer's recommendations. Those are minimums.
Okay.
And they want you to think that the car will last forever, so your cost per mile of ownership is way down.
So if they say at 100,000 miles, it's because they know it should get there, but it's going to be close.
We know as a shop that we've replaced over 10,000 transmissions and over 10,000 engines. And when we ask the customer what happened to it, and they tell us, and we say, what's your routines like? Oh, I change that oil every 8 to 10,000. Whenever that light comes on, maybe a little after. No, that's too long. But it's great if you're going to buy a new car and the manufacturer says, just wait until the light comes on. It'll probably be once a year or so. Don't worry about it. Well, okay, that's fine if you're selling the car every 36,000 miles. Trading it in for you. What about the next person who has it? If you want a mechanical piece of equipment to last, you've got to maintain it. You've got to make sure the fluids are kept up. You've got to make sure that you don't overheat it. If the check engine light comes on, or if you see leaks on the ground, it is your responsibility to get that car in and get it checked. What a lot of people don't know too, if you buy a car and you've got a warranty on it, what do you think is going to happen if you tell them, well, yeah, it's been leaking on the ground, but I knew it had a warranty, so I was too busy to bring it in, so I drove it for the last month leaking oil. Well, you ran it out of oil, and that's not covered by warranty because that's under the abuse clause, the racing and abusing the vehicle. Well, what do you mean? It's got a warranty. No, the warranty isn't for stupidity. The warranty covers problems that occurred. Insurance is for accidents and stupidity, apparently, in some cases. But,
right.
You've got to maintain it. I've had people come in after we've done a repair, and the funny thing is so Chris, if you spend anything over a few $100 for something, and it's got a warranty on it, and it fails like a week later, how long are you going to wait before you contact the people you bought it from and say, I have a problem with this?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to wait 6 months or almost a year, maybe a little over a year? So I occasionally, most of our customers are amazing, but occasionally I'll get somebody that says, so the warranty is a year on everything we have. Some is 3 years, 100,000 miles or unlimited mileage. But on those year warranties, you'd be surprised how many people will call at like 15, 16 months and say, yeah, I've got a problem with this and it's done this. Well, it's done it since a couple weeks after I got it, but I just never really got around to it. Well, now it's 3 months out of warranty and you're just now mentioning it.
Mm-hmm.
You spent $7,000 and you didn't bother saying anything. I find that hard to believe. So with people that get new cars, if you have a leak, if you have a check engine light, you owe it to yourself to get it checked right away. It's under warranty. And again, don't get a good mechanic, follow their recommendations based on the cars that they repair that have needed things because of lack of maintenance. If they say, oh, yeah, we put transmissions in these things when they hit 60 to 80,000 miles, it's continuous. They're always happening. Well, what do you see? We see that the fluid is black. It's burnt up. There's a problem with the transmission fluid because they did not change it. And if the ones that we see, our customers that are changing the fluid on a regular basis, let's say it's 40,000 miles on these because they're just super dark and burning up, they don't have the problems. We've got some of these customers driving this vehicle. They've got 200,000 miles. We know they've changed the transmission fluid 5 times, and they've had 0 issues with it. But other people, they've never changed it. 60, 80,000, they're like clockwork. They're failing. The manufacturer's not going to tell you that. Timing belts. If you've got an Escape with that little tiny engine, don't believe for a minute that you can go 100,000 miles on that belt. It's the manufacturer that built the belt doesn't say that long, but the manufacturer of the car says that's fine. But they are not going to pay you when your belt fails at 80 or 90,000 miles and the car's 5 years old. You just buy a new engine and get a new belt at that time because it's a 36,000 mile warranty, 3 years, 36. But if they tell you 100,000, that's great because it sounds like you can go a longer period before you have to spend money to fix a car, and nobody wants to fix that. So yeah, that's our advice is you buy a new car, hook up with the mechanic and tell them, hey, ask them, what do I need to do to keep this going a long time? What are your recommendations based on what you see on this car? And then follow them. Don't get behind. So many people are just so far behind in changes, and I get cars all the time. They come in for transmission fluid changes, and I'm like, this is great. The fluid is not burnt. It's not black yet. It's a very dark color, this reddish, orangish. So it's definitely worn. Time to be done, but it's perfect that you hit it. And that may be 35,000 miles. That may be 100,000 miles. But you don't know unless you ask that repair shop. But I did have a Honda come in a few days ago. Came in Monday last week, and he said, I just want you to change the fluid. No problem. And I pulled the stick out and looked at it. I said, that fluid is toast. The transmission was burning. So I went up front and I said, have any issues with this transmission? Oh, well, yeah, I've been having some slippage issues and I can smell like a burning fluid. He didn't tell me that. He said, I need my transmission fluid changed. Well, a lot of shops, you go in and they'll change your fluid and your car wouldn't have moved. And then whose fault is that?
Right.
Well, you got to tell them. So we inspect it before we change it. So my recommendation was start saving your money for a transmission. And if you decide by the time you have the money saved up and it fails, you want to put one in, put it in. If not, you've got that money to go towards another car. But if you change this fluid now, it's going to cost you money to change it, and it's going to fail. It's definitely going to fail.
We talked about this on a recent show too. I bought the car brand new. Mm-hmm. Is there anything I should be adding to it chemically, either in the tank or in the engine itself? If you bought a brand new car, would you be adding anything to it? Gas, just the straight Equinox.
While you don't have to, you can drive it. Do you want to maintain it? You know, as a person, you don't have to eat right and exercise, but the lifespan of the person is typically less when you do that.
I don't know why you're looking around.
But if you want to put some additives in there, good food, supplements, little exercise, that equates to a car that's parked all the time or one that you actually drive. Yeah, there you go. It's great recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for my workout.
Yeah. So now I want chocolate milk.
I know, me too. I'm sorry.
Something. I'm hungry. Hangry. So yeah, you can extend the life. So yes, there are great additive products out there. You've got ones that will clean your fuel injection system. You know, they've got Hot Shot Secret makes a great fuel system cleaner. They make the diesel additives to remove for stiction, which is a problem you have with injectors on a lot of the Fords and things that have caused problems there. When you're putting additives in a tank, our partner at Justice Brothers, fuel injection system cleaner, cars with oil system problems, like your a lot of the Dodge products we've had with oil system issues, the AFM lifter issues we have in the General Motors. Put the oil system cleaner in it. Drive the vehicle for, I know you've had a couple cars, Chris, where we tell you put the cleaner in it, the Justice Brothers cleaner. You drive that thing for the 10 miles it takes to get to our shop, and then we clean it. But if you go to another oil change place, say, hey, I just put this cleaner in, so it's going to look like water, and it's going to be, it might be thinner because it's hot and it's really dirty. So it looks like dirty water. It's not a problem because they're going to come to you and say, hey, I think something's going on here because it's really, really dirty and it just seems not right. So yeah, you could put those additives in, but now in the case of a diesel, you better be putting it in every single time you fill it with fuel, because the systems. We just had a big recall with GM.
Why haven't they figured that out? You do it with the EDF.
You can make a stronger system, but we're having problems with the metals. Look, the camshafts are failing because they can't. They're getting, a lot of these are coming from China. They're not, the metal's not the quality it used to be, so they're wearing. So to make something that takes even more holding up under pressure inside of these CP3 pumps and things in these diesels, they just can't do it. The metal quality is very poor. That's what we've got to overcome our fuel problem. We got to go to that. And if the fuel, if they would allow more sulfur or something in the fuel as an additive right at the pump, that would be better. But in the name of emissions, we've really cut back a lot. And I think we need to keep watching emissions, but we need to find the blend.
Right.
Are we costing more to the planet emissions wise by having to make more parts and having these cars drive around that are running horribly, burning oil and things like that because of the fuel we're putting in initially? Or, could we get a couple more miles per gallon and have a little more emissions, but not have the breakdowns where we have to create more parts? I don't know.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Doug. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Doug, what can we do for you?
Evening, or morning. I was listening to your show about the oil change and all the transmission fluids changing at regular intervals. I have a 21 truck that the oil light is saying change oil, but the truck sits for like 6 months of the year. I drive it in the winter time. Do I actually need to change oil on that? I mean, it shouldn't have to because it's sat.
Ooh, that's a good question.
If it sits, that cardboard oil filter is going to rot. So if it sits too long and you're using a standard oil filter and not like a Wix extended drain filter or something like that, it can come apart and damage that engine. So at the very least, you're going to have to change that filter or switch over to extended drain filters. But if you're putting on, on a 21 like that, like we were talking about all these problems with AFM and lifters and stuff, I've got one that gets very little miles on it in the summer. In fact, I haven't driven it in 4 months now, but that gets the oil changed every 3,000 miles, period. I don't put, I may put 5,000 miles a year on it, but it's getting the oil changed twice, spring and the fall on it. And I do have an extended drain filter in it just in case, because I don't want to risk the problem with the cams and stuff they have in those engines. But if you've got that light comes on for time, mileage, it knows the temperature of the engine. It knows it has not got up to a proper operating temperature to burn all the moisture out of it. So it's telling you to change it. So, little longer trips now and then, but I would still recommend 3,000 miles no matter what.
That spring and fall used to be kind of the way you did it. And that, even if you're not driving your vehicle very much, is that still a good idea?
Oil changes are expensive. I get it, but still you want to protect that engine, because if you've got a $10,000 engine replacement or a few oil changes, I'd go with the oil changes.
Doug, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. And that is, I'll say this, as someone who does not want to, I don't want to maintain my vehicles. I don't want to put any additive in there. I don't want to do any of that. But once you start, it starts to feel good, because you can go to the auto parts store, you spend $15 and you feel like you're doing something to help that car, which you are.
And you are.
And it gets better. It gets better with age. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Until next time, you can find us at underthehoodshow.com. Thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show.